My name's Lee, and today I'm going to break down the process on how to add a skin taper to a structured and carefully crafted slick back look. Before starting any haircut, it's important to assess the hairlines and growth patterns to see if there are any fixed factors that might have a negative effect on a desired outcome. Especially when tapering, it's important to assess the external growth patterns and directions in the temple area and the nape area. When it comes to building the structure of a haircut, I'm paying attention to the internal fixed factors such as growth patterns and the position of the crown. I'm very fortunate here with my model's hair that he has a well-balanced hairline and a well-balanced crown. For the most part, fixed factors will tell you exactly what you need to know when it comes to deciding what shape is suitable for each individual human that sits in your chair. I'm going to start this haircut by spraying down the hair until it is thoroughly damp. Alternatively, this can be done at the basin with shampoo and conditioner. Next, I'm going to decide my zone pattern, which will dictate the overall shape development throughout this haircut. Something I'm paying close attention to while spraying down the hair is the bone structure, primarily the widest and the highest points of the head. Throughout the consultation, my model requested that he prefer if there wasn't too much density left between the occipital bone and the crown area. This tells me I need to be mindful of my cutting methodology in these areas. To start the sectioning process, I'm going to separate left from right and front from back by dividing the head into quadrants. This is purely to make the sectioning process more manageable for myself by dealing with smaller panels of hair. Next, I'm going to separate the top from the bottom by creating a zone just above the widest point on the sides of the head, which are the contours. I'm sectioning roughly a comb's width above to allow me the space and visibility to create graduation. If I section directly on top of the contour of the head, I risk creating graduation in the wrong place, resulting in me having to cut that panel again later on. We like to use the motto, think twice and cut once, for maximum efficiency. I'm going to secure the top away with a clip. Here's where paying attention to the bone structure comes in. It was important for me to identify the widest point of the back of the head, which is the occipital bone, so that I could create my zones accordingly. I want to treat both of these zones separately, as I've planned to use different cutting methodologies in both. I'm creating a deep V-shaped zone that hovers just above the occipital bone. This has two benefits. Much like the sides, hovering just above the widest point of the head allows me to create structure exactly where I need it. Secondly, the diagonal lines are a continuation of the section lines on the top of the head and will serve as a reference point for my graduation technique on the sides. Starting at the temple area on my right hand side, I'm going to establish an initial length for my graduation. I'm starting here because I feel it's a safer place to start, as I need enough length for this look to be worn back away from the face. If I started at the back of the head, I run the risk of cutting the hair too short, and even if I didn't, I'd still be guessing what length I need throughout the side panels. Throughout this zone, I want to create a shape which is triangular on the vertical axis and round on the horizontal axis. I'm choosing to use diagonal back sections, not too close to the vertical and not too close to the horizontal, somewhere in between. This is because the hair growth patterns are quite well behaved, and through my assessments, this technique will allow me to retain enough length along the contour of the head right where I need it. Using a diagonal back section line when creating graduation also allows for maximum comfortability when dealing with posture. On this side, the knuckles can lean towards the head and the fingertips can lean towards the ceiling. The elbow can be kept low and the shoulder relaxed. It also mimics the hairlines and encourages the hair direction. I'm going to continue this process until I reach the center back of the head. Repeat this process on the other side. Now that the back and sides are complete, I'm going to move on to the crown panel, above the occipital bone. Remember at the start I mentioned we didn't want too much density left in this area. To mitigate this, I need to change my cutting methodology. I'm choosing to layer this zone above the occipital instead of continuing on with graduation. Referring back to our key cutting principles, layering is the internal distribution or removal of weight and length. The layer shape I'm choosing here is square vertically and round horizontally. Once again, body position is going to be paramount here when controlling my horizontal shape. My elevation and cutting line are going to be responsible for controlling the vertical shape. Once I've finished with the layering, I'm going to cross-check for balance. Moving on to the top now, this zone is going to be disconnected from the sides but have a soft connection in the crown area. Throughout the consultation, I discovered that my model wanted to retain as much length as possible throughout the top, so once again I have to be mindful of my cutting methodology. This time around, I didn't want to remove any length, but I thought it was necessary to add some movement to the ends of the hair so that when it's worn back, there's a flow to the look. For this cutting technique, I'm using my crocodile tooth texture scissors, and I'm going to shallow point cut with them to keep density through the mid-lengths, but create some space between the ends. I'm creating sections roughly the width of my comb, starting at the crown and working towards the front hairline. I'm sectioning away the hair after I cut it to keep this zone neat and organised, and to ensure I don't overcut any particular section. Lastly, I'm going to ensure that the top is softly connected to the crown area. I'm using my texture scissors to continue the layering technique I started from the zone above the occipital bone. Well, that's the wet cutting complete. Now I'm going to move on to styling the hair. For this look, I'm going to apply some matte finish styling balm. I'm primarily using the product to give the hair some hold and set it in place before the clipper work. I'm distributing a generous amount of product throughout the hair from roots to tips. I'm going to start by rough drying the hair utilising the gentle air attachment on the Dyson Supersonic with a medium heat and a medium speed. It's important to guide the hair in the direction that it's going to live. The hair's direction generally comes from the roots. Once the hair is around 60% dry, I'm going to switch to the concentrated attachment on the Supersonic and wrap dry all panels of the hair with a vest brush. I'm wrap drying the hair in the direction that it's going to live, focusing on the direction and finish. Throughout the back and sides, I want the hair to look compact and smooth. I'm starting the wrap drying process at the back of the head and working towards the front. This is to keep the process efficient and organised. To really bring this section to life and to make it a feature piece, I'm going to switch to a round brush and add a little extra volume and shine to the hair. And finally, once I'm happy with how the hair is sitting, I'm going to switch the Supersonic to a cool setting and loosen up the look slightly with my hands. The cool setting will solidify the product again, giving the hair hold and shine. Now that the styling is complete, I'm going to finish off this look with a skin taper. Cutting and styling the top zones first allows me to set up the structure and have maximum visibility when deciding where the taper should fit. The first guard of choice is a number 3 with the lever closed. I'm going to start by going with the grain over the top of the occipital bone to debulk this area. Running with the grain will smooth out any hair that is raising up over the bone structure. Once I'm happy with how it is looking, I'll flip the clipper over and cut against the grain, hugging just underneath the occipital bone. Next, I'm going to scissor over comb with the wide teeth of the comb to smooth out the transition area. When putting in a zero line for a taper fade, my general rule of thumb is to find the first point where the hair becomes strong from the bottom up. As you can see here, this is just above the growth patterns in the nape. This is the first point where the hair is strong enough to create a balanced line. The most important thing here though is to leave yourself enough space to achieve an even colour spread between the zero line and the number 3. After that, I'm going to go in and take this panel to the skin with my foil shaver. My next guard of choice is a number 1 with the lever closed. I'm going to remove the hair roughly an inch above the zero line. You'll notice here that I'm working in panels. Much like the rest of this haircut, this is to keep things organised and create reference points for the rest of this taper. Next, I'm going to take the guard off and open up the lever. I'm slowly closing the lever until I blend away the zero line. To remove the zero line completely, use whichever tool you initially created that line with and gently flick over the line with the end few teeth. My next guard of choice is a number 1.5 guard with the lever fully open. This will act like a number 2 and sit just underneath the number 3. After that, I will close the lever and continue the process. You may have noticed a pattern forming by now. This is an ascending technique, meaning I'm working upwards a little and then back down, upwards a little more and then back down. Next up, it's the number 1 guard with the lever fully open, and that's going to sit just under the 1.5. Then I'm going to close the lever and adjust the colour spread and dark spots as I see fit. Before I move on to another panel, I'm going to sharpen up the hairline first to see how the flow of the look is coming together. Repeat this process on the opposite panel. Once I'm happy with how the back is looking, I'm going to move on to the side panels. The process here is much the same as before, starting with the number 3 and repeating the same steps. Now that the hairlines have been sharpened, I can focus on balancing out the colour spread with scissor over comb. As you can see here, I've purposely left this part to the end to balance out, as this can be quite deceiving and make it look like there is white or dark spots in that area when really it's the ink from the tattoos. I'm spending a few moments here refining this area and taking some steps back to assess the balance and colour spread. Once I'm happy, I'm going to repeat the process on the other side. Moving into the final stages of the cut now, I'm going to adjust the dark spots or heavy areas with my texture scissors, over comb, and a picking technique. This is a very visual process and deserves a few minutes at the end of each cut. Developing an eye for techniques like this comes with time and can require a lot of practice. Getting back to the theme of this haircut, I'm going to add some sharpness to this haircut by using the cutthroat razor around the perimeter edges. I've powdered the skin, and on healthy skin like this, as long as I have an anchor point where I can keep the skin pulled tight, the powder is all I need to allow the blade to run smoothly. To finish this look, I'm going to warm a small amount of matte paste between my palms, distribute throughout the hair and groom accordingly. And there we have it, a carefully crafted and structured haircut incorporating a skin taper for sharpness. To see more like this, please visit our extensive education library